Hi, I'm Michael Berman, and I'm in 7th grade, and this is my Gifted and Talented Project number 1. In this project, we focus on all the effects that the virus has had on your everyday person throughout the world, and we have a lot of interesting surveys with people, interviews, and we also have a lot of scientific research, so I hope you enjoy. Thank you.
COVID-19 definition and development as a global pandemic. The definition of coronavirus is any of various RNA-containing spherical viruses of the family Coronaviridae, including several that cause acute respiratory illness. This means that there are actually numerous different types of coronavirus in the world. The coronavirus had actually come from an animal that was eaten by a citizen of Wuhan, China. This person had then contracted the virus from the animal. It is believed that the animal had come from a Wuhan wet market. Once the person was infected, the virus started to spread to other people who had come into contact with this person. Before anybody even knew the virus had existed, there were already many people who had been infected. From here, the virus started to spread into other countries. In the blink of an eye, the virus transformed into what it is today, where there are millions of cases in the U.S. alone. What categorizes COVID-19 as a pandemic? The coronavirus had begun in a very small area among very few people. At this point, it was nowhere near what it is today, but the virus spread could very quickly change this. After a brief amount of time, the people who had contracted the virus had spread it to others, and in the blink of an eye, the virus had spread all throughout Wuhan, China. At this point, the virus would have been considered an epidemic since it had spread to such a vast amount of people. Eventually, the people who had contracted the virus in Wuhan could have begun to spread it to other people and even other countries depending on where they had traveled. The virus had eventually made its way to other countries and began to spread to hundreds of thousands of people. Once it had happened, the virus would have been considered to be a full-blown pandemic. It is truly amazing how something could go from a small little virus that was only found in a small section of Wuhan to manifesting the entire planet. This is the 7-minute video. So should I play it or?
I mean, if you want to do, I don't know. What do you think, Miss Vargas? What time is
Okay.
it? 2:52.
I think that, Michael, I think that you should guide us through everything and then we go back to it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll move on
Go
to,
ahead.
This is a interview. So this is the COVID-19 impact on everyday life and activities.
Okay, hello. So I would like to start this interview off by thanking you for joining me today. It's my pleasure. Okay, so in this meeting, I'm going to ask you a few questions.
Oh, wait, what happened?
Okay, hello. So I would like to start this
to
interview
where we were.
off by thanking you for joining me today. It's my pleasure. Okay, so in this meeting, I'm going to ask you a few questions about how the COVID-19 pandemic has kind of changed and impacted your daily activities and what you do every day. That's fine. Okay, so my first question is, how has it changed the way that you go out, where you go out, maybe even when you go out? When I go out, well, I have to think twice about it because I'm not free to go out. Number one, I'm a senior. I have autoimmune problem, hypertension and diabetes, so I'm a real candidate for this disease. I have to be ultra careful. I don't go to buy any luxury things anymore. I have to really think about it. My children do my shopping for food. I go only if it's necessary. I go to church, but it's not the same kind of a church. I try to sit away from people. The church doesn't do a good job. They keep you 6 feet apart every other pew. But I can't go to my senior meetings. everything is closed down. It's really a very big inconvenience. Okay, now, my other question is, since you're not going out as much, how has it like impacted you mentally? Like having to stay home so much longer each day? I try to keep myself busy with crocheting. I have a little dog in the house and whatnot, but it's very depressing. If you really think about it, you can become depressed. But I read, I try to do things that I can do to keep me occupied. Mm-hmm. So that's about it for this interview. So I would like to thank you again for joining me. Thank you.
Okay, so economic/financial effects. As you could already imagine, the COVID pandemic has had a tragic effect on the economy of both the world and, most importantly, the businesses within it. Many businesses have been struggling to even pay their rent, not even considering making any profit every month. The early closing of most businesses put them into enough debt as is, but then they have to abide by the added regulations. These regulations recently took a bite out of many small businesses' profits, especially the restaurant industry, which could fit enough people into their restaurants to be successful. These regulations and early shutdowns are the reason that so many businesses were forced to shut down and never open back up again. This is absolutely terrible. For many of these businesses have been around for decades. So I have a little chart down here that says the sequence of events. So the pandemic hit the world, the businesses were forced to shut down, and then many were forced to close due to the lack of income. And here's the video to go along.
The Fed did a terrific job. They saved us from something that would have been a lot worse than 2008 and 9 when they acted in March. So large companies who, in the middle of March, early March, were going to have no access to capital. The markets just opened wide, and the corporate issuance was huge. But the small businesses received some help, but it's not getting them to the end of the tunnel. And you see a situation. Just take food manufacturers, the big ones, have done terrifically. People haven't quit eating, and the large grocery chains have done very well. Margins of wine sales have been good, but if you had to get your food in a small restaurant or medium-sized restaurant, and social distancing was required and everything, you just killed the economics for somebody that may have been working for decades with their family to build a business and reinvested the earnings in improving their establishment, and then through no fault of their own, an edict comes along that kills all their dreams. And it would be so foolish to not follow through on this and enable those people to get back to where they could do the kind of business they were doing before. It's an economic war, and certain, when we went into World War II, a lot of industries were shut down, and everything went over to defense production. Well, we've shut down a lot of people in this particular induced recession, and others are prospering, and I think that the country owes it to the really millions of small business people, and I've met a lot of these people through the Goldman Sachs program. Just renew the PPP and get us to the end of the tunnel.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching.
Okay, so this is an interview regarding the impacts on employment and what it did.
Okay, hello, how are you doing today?
I'm fine, how are you?
Good. So in this interview, I'm going to ask you a few different questions about how COVID-19 has affected your overall job and employment, and also your precautions to make sure that you don't catch the virus.
Sure.
Okay, so my first question is, how did this virus affect your work hours?
I'm a registered nurse. I worked in the hospital for many years, but I'm currently employed in an office setting. I primarily work for one doctor, but there are 6 positions in the office, along with 6 different nurses and ultrasound technicians, laboratory people, billing, the front desk, and administration. So there are many, many employees in our office, and it is a big group. So prior to this, the doctors were working all at once, all 6 of them. So it was a lot of traffic in that office. So we wanted to minimize that, so they staggered the doctor's hours and the nurses' hours. So I used to work the 40-hour week, and now I'm working 2 half days. So it is an impact financially on the paycheck, but it's for everybody's best benefit. So that's, we had to do that to promote social distancing, which is so, so important.
Okay, so my next question is, how do you make sure that none of the patients that go into the office contract the virus, and that none of the people in the office contract the virus from one of the patients who may have the virus or come into contact with someone who does?
Our first form of defense is that we have a COVID-19 questionnaire. And we go over this when we're confirming the patient's appointments. We're asking them if they have any signs and symptoms of the COVID, any exposure, are they awaiting results? We ask them if they traveled outside of New Jersey. Also, when they come in, we monitor their temperature. Anybody 100.4 degrees or above has to go immediately to the emergency room. They're not allowed in the office. Also, we have an in and an out, like the one way in a food store. We have arrows on the floor to minimize the trafficking in the hallways. We are so diligent about disinfecting the rooms. We do it prior to them coming into the room and when they leave. We do the doorknobs. We even disinfect the bathrooms if they use the bathroom after each patient. It's so important. Also, we wear our masks, we wear eye shields.
Okay, and my third and final question is, what do you do when you get home to try and avoid having any of your family members maybe contract the virus from any of your equipment or clothing or any of that?
Okay, so the first thing I do is I leave my shoes outside on the front porch. I do not walk in the house with them. I come immediately into the house and I go downstairs and I take my uniform off and I take a hot shower. I put on clean clothing and we monitor our temps in our house. I take the temps twice a day on everyone because my husband also is exposed. He's in the restaurant business. And my son Michael. He's in school, and it's just important. So we all just try and be diligent on wearing our masks, social distancing, and I can't stress enough washing hands and hand sanitizing.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome.
Okay, so the next one is the effects on education. As you could imagine, the pandemic has also had extreme dramatic effects on education. Many school districts were forced to go virtual, and this brought up many problems. The worry about everybody at home having laptops resulted in many schools around the world ordering millions of laptops for the students. This isn't where the problem ends. Students could have a poor Wi-Fi connection at home, which could result in these students constantly getting kicked out of their classes or struggling to complete their assignments. Another considerable problem was lunch. Many schools who have gone remote had to figure out a way to make sure that the students could get their lunches every day. Many of them have created a way that the students could walk up and get it without going outside. This adjustment could also affect the parents greatly, for they might need to stay home to take care of their children. This could mean that they lose a few days of pay during the week. In the end, the virus has definitely had many major impacts on education. So I'll play this video and then I'll skip a few of the next ones.
School closures in 37 states affect more than 37 million kids, from kindergartners all the way through 12th graders. Some families are struggling to adjust as the coronavirus crisis grows. Meg Oliver is at an empty middle school in Montclair, New Jersey. Meg, good morning. We know your kids are home right now, probably with your husband working on their schoolwork, but how about students there? How are they getting an education?
Yeah, this is the time when students normally line up here in front of Buzz Aldrin Middle School, but this is one of the schools in New Jersey that has already closed down as millions of students across the country log on from home, some with laptops provided by the district, and parents juggle this new world of learning, but it looks different in each family.
We're taking this step to keep our school communities safe.
Public schools in Los Angeles closed this week. Some 600,000 students forced to stay home. The same happened on the East Coast in New York City, where there's a 5-week closure of the country's largest public school district, serving more than 1 million students, leaving officials scrambling to assure child care for emergency personnel and healthcare workers.
And here you are, sir.
Another major concern is making sure students don't go hungry. More than 70% live in poverty, so free breakfast and lunch is being offered at all New York public schools.
2 meals I don't have to provide, which is 2 meals I can provide another day.
City schools are also moving to online classes next week, but even the head of New York's public schools says some 300,000 kids don't have electronic devices or internet access at home.
We ordered hotspots. We've teamed with Apple. We've bought laptops. We're going to have laptops coming in at about 25,000 a day.
In Miami, Mary Williams is racing to find childcare for the rest of the week and beyond.
Thank God I was off today and was able to come out here to get them something to eat, but for the rest of the week, I won't know.
Every day, we're going to have a morning meeting.
In New Jersey, remote teaching started Monday for several districts.
We did realistic fiction. Realistic fiction.
Substitute teacher Trisha Angelillo has 4 kids ranging from preschool to 7th grade.
How long are you prepared to keep this up? The school says 2 weeks. I'm assuming a month. And I think the hope is this week we get into a rhythm.
How overwhelmed are you feeling?
It's a lot, I think. And my kids can see it. I can feel it.
I can feel it too as a parent, Tony and Gail and Anthony, as you all know. New Jersey's governor now has ordered that all schools across the state be closed by tomorrow. Here in Montclair, the school district deployed 300 Chromebook laptops to families in need. Gail?
I know, Meg. We saw you yesterday with Cormac, Maria, and Tommy all sitting at home, being homeschooled.
Good memory.
Yeah, parents have to figure it out. I know that. We got to figure it out. Thank you very much, Meg. Good to see you.
Okay, so effects on childcare. In the video, you can see how COVID-19 has had extreme effects on the child care industry across the globe. The virus doesn't only affect the children, but it affects the parents and also the owners of the child care facilities. Some of these businesses might not be able to stay open for very long, for they are only allowed to have a few children in the building at a time. This is bad for the parents, for they might have to take off from work so that they can watch their children. This means that they would be losing a day's worth of pay, and these days add up. Okay, so the effect on social life. As everybody knows, humans were created to interact with one another. Socializing is extremely important for keeping a healthy mental life. If people were to be trapped in complete silence for a certain amount of time, they would eventually go crazy. The pandemic has had great effects on people's social lives, which in response has had an extreme effect on their mental health. The fact that many businesses were closed due to the pandemic means that many people couldn't socialize with others nearly as much as they used to. Coffee shops, movie theaters, malls, and even restaurants are all places where people would spend time with each other that had been affected by the shutdown. This causes concerns about how people would be mentally affected by the raging pandemic. The sudden change could definitely affect many people's social lives and possibly even cause them to have many mental issues. Impact on recreational life. As you could imagine, the pandemic has had some extremely prominent effects on recreational life. Not only does this affect people's abilities to exercise, but it also has a huge impact on their mental health. Everybody knows that sports are one of the main methods for exercise across the globe and are very important for keeping a healthy lifestyle. The pandemic has limited the number of sports and exercises that people can do because of the fact that many gyms were closed, and it is obviously nearly impossible to play sports with a mask on. There is another problem with the pandemic has imposed on recreational life. This problem involves vacation and sporting events. Many people wouldn't only find pleasure in playing sports, but also watching them. People who look forward to attending the Super Bowl, baseball games, and other sporting events. Vacations have also been greatly affected by the pandemic. Many people are not able to go on their yearly trips due to the different shutdowns and concerns about catching the virus. This, along with the effects on sports, has had huge impacts on people physically and mental health. Effects on self-care. The pandemic has also had a great impact on taking care of yourself. Everybody knows that getting your hair cut or going to the doctor every once in a while is a part of their routine throughout the year. Now that the pandemic has hit, many precautions have to be made in order to keep everybody safe. Unfortunately, these forms of self-care are very hands-on and are difficult to complete without coming into contact with other people. Luckily, a solution to this problem has been put into use. Any surfaces that are touched by customers or patients are thoroughly disinfected. This, along with the masks, social distancing, and frequent use of hand sanitizer, helps to keep everybody safe. These precautions are obviously considered to be an annoyance by many, but they are the little inconvenience that is required to keep everybody alive. So I'm going to play this video because it's pretty important. This shows you everything, all the safety measures that goes on.
A lot has changed here at Penn Medicine since the outbreak of COVID-19. As we begin to return to normal, we want to let you know what we're doing to ensure patient and staff safety and what you can expect when you arrive for an appointment. First, we've enabled patient pre-check-in on the My Penn Medicine portal in order to minimize time spent in our facilities. Just log in, and with a few quick clicks, our clinical team will know you're ready to arrive for your scheduled appointment. When you enter the building, you'll notice that staff and patient entrances are now separate to better control traffic through doors. There will also be contactless temperature screenings at all entrances, so only those without COVID-19 symptoms will be allowed inside. As always, our greeters will be there to help you find your way, and you'll notice they are wearing masks and standing at least 6 feet apart from others. For those of you taking an elevator to get to your appointment, there will be limits to how many people can enter at one time. Frequently touched surfaces like elevator buttons are being constantly wiped down, and our cleaning staff are regularly disinfecting all areas of our facilities in order to halt the spread of germs. Across Penn Medicine's locations, you'll find hand sanitizing stations, so no matter what your route is, you'll have many opportunities to disinfect along the way. When you arrive at check-in areas, you'll notice plexiglass separators and rearranged waiting rooms, all designed with your safety in mind. Our providers will be wearing masks at all times and remain at a safe distance while discussing your care. If your care requires a physical exam, be assured that our providers will be sanitizing and wearing all required protective equipment for your safety and theirs. We've also made some changes to our common areas and cafeterias to ensure a safe, relaxing experience between appointments without needing to leave the building. And if you're picking up prescriptions at our pharmacy, you'll see that dividers have been put in place to allow for a contactless experience. We understand this is not an easy time, and we're here to help you every step of the way. At Penn Medicine, our top priority is providing world-class patient care in a safe and comfortable environment for you and your loved ones.
Okay, so physiological/emotional impact of complete shutdown to phased reopening. One of the most concerning problems with the coronavirus shutdown is people's mental response. The idea of completely changing the course of people's daily life out of nowhere could obviously throw off people's lives. Majority of the population has had trouble converting to the new lifestyle that has been caused by the virus. The social distancing, masks, and closed businesses are all examples of this change. The change is not only part of the shutdown that could affect people mentally. Getting back to normal is also something that will have to be greatly considered. People might not feel safe to go back to their normal lives, and it could take a very long time for everybody to transfer back to their original way of lives. This is obviously something that could cause mental stress or other mental illnesses and could even take professional physiological help to solve. Business types that were negatively affected by COVID-19 shutdown/restrictions. It is without a doubt that many businesses have been negatively affected by the virus. These businesses range anywhere from airlines to restaurants. Even since the beginning of the pandemic, airlines had been affected by it. They had to close many routes to infected areas and cancel many flights. This obviously cost them a great sum of money and resulted in many crew members being unemployed. The restaurant industry has also taken a great hit by the pandemic. With the social distancing, closed indoor dining, and other circumstances, restaurants have lost a lot of money. Even though you are now allowed to have partial capacity indoors, it simply isn't enough to be profitable. This unfortunately means that many restaurants and other negatively impacted businesses might never recover from the severe financial impact that the virus has imposed on them. Business types that were able to survive the COVID-19 shutdown/restrictions. Though many businesses have had great trouble staying open during the COVID-19 pandemic, there were a few types of businesses that were able to succeed. Online shopping has become more and more popular during the pandemic because you can't catch a virus through a computer screen. This means that companies like Amazon and everybody else who has an online shopping platform was able to at least make some money. This also means that these companies have had great success through the pandemic, with other physical stores might be suffering financially. Online stores are not the only stores that were able to succeed. Everybody knows that food is an essential to supporting life. This means that supermarkets can't be shut down during the pandemic, so ShopRite, Fairway, and other food stores were able to continue making profit. Lucky for these types of businesses, they have created businesses that can survive a huge pandemic, but others were not. But others were not
Nearly as lucky.
nearly as lucky. Implemented adjustments for successful businesses during pandemic. Businesses have had to make some extreme adjustments to keep their employees safe and continue working without being consumed by the pandemic. Many of them have invested millions or even billions of dollars into personal protective equipment and sanitization devices and products. They provide employment. They provided employees with masks, an unlimited amount of hand sanitizer, and even COVID-19 tests. They can begin sanitizing majority of the surfaces and installed plexiglass in common areas that employees would interact. These adjustments were extremely important for keeping all the businesses safe from contamination. These precautions would also be extremely important in the event of another shutdown occurring. They would assure that these businesses would have a higher chance of staying open through a second wave of the virus. Overall, these adjustments might seem expensive, but will definitely be worth it in the event of another shutdown occurring. And then this is the last video.
With hundreds of buildings and hundreds of thousands of employees, Amazon has transformed its operations in response to COVID-19 to protect employees and keep packages flowing.
I was extremely proud of my team and the way they were handling the situation on a daily basis. Every day they were coming into work, ready to embrace change.
Marty Kuhl is site leader at an Amazon fulfillment center. He's helped implement more than 150 new health and safety measures protecting his team. Those include thermal screenings as employees walk in, so anyone who may have a fever can quickly be identified. Face coverings are required, and anyone can get a mask as they walk in. Sanitizer and hand washing stations are all over the building.
I feel safe coming to work every day.
Stanlyn Greenman has worked at Amazon for 4 years. She says the focus on safety is why she's kept coming to work and getting those critical orders out the door.
The little less job I do in here could mean the world to everybody else outside.
Everybody across all of Amazon has been all hands on deck.
Heather McDougall is Amazon's Vice President of Worldwide Workplace Health and Safety. She's overseen innovations like using disinfectant spraying to deep clean facilities. Amazon says it's planning to spend more than $800 million on health and safety in the first half of the year. Break rooms are completely reconfigured for social distancing. Employee services have plexiglass to still allow safe face-to-face connection. Amazon now expects to spend $4 billion between April and June on its COVID-19 response, including by conducting its own on-site testing.
We are doing more than any other employer that I know. I am super proud of the work that we've done.
McDougall says every single one of Amazon's workforce of nearly 1 million people has played a critical role in making these changes happen.
I hope that they feel that passion that we have for safety.
So they can stay safe and healthy while you do too.
And then we have the works cited page.